The year is 2030. Dining out has become a luxury experience. Food comes to us wherever we may be, cooked in a warehouse resembling a server farm of kitchens. We have submitted stool samples containing our microbiomes to a company that can personalize each aspect of our food and beverage consumption, making sure it's right for us. We can order groceries and other consumables in a matter of minutes, delivered via e-bike from micro-fulfillment centers occupying former retail spaces and subterranean parking garages. Oh, and nobody really cooks anymore. That's for the celebrity chefs you see on Netflix. They are responsible for creating a set of instructions for robots to cook with minimal human input. The price of meat has increased exponentially, rendering steakhouses a vestige of some opulent past of corporate expense accounts. Meanwhile, the cost of in vitro meat has finally reached price parity with other plant-based alternatives, causing consumers to ask a whole new set of ethical questions about where their food comes from. Our produce is grown hydroponically by robots, not farmers, in industrial urban warehouses with cheap access to electricity. And last but not least, cannabis is federally legalized and has disrupted everything from prescription medications to energy drinks to health and wellness brands. Okay, now let's get started.
I'm Matt Newberg, and this is Hungry. Yeah. Who's hungry? Thank you so much, Betaworks, for hosting us tonight in this amazing space where Hungry was actually born. And thank you, the audience, for attending Hungry's inaugural event. I even heard that someone came in from San Francisco, so that's pretty wild. I'm your host, Matt Newberg. So, did that voiceover terrify you? Did parts of it intrigue you? Before we dive in, I just want to say that my goal here tonight is to provoke. If you felt something visceral, you should have, because you are the food that you consume. Hungry provokes new perspectives on a world where technology shapes the way people eat. And I do this through three different avenues. The first is a blog and soon-to-be newsletter. The second is a video series. You may have seen a video I've done about ghost kitchens, THC-infused beverages, and I'm also working on one about fungi-based protein. More on that. And last but not least, events. So tonight we're all here to talk about the next decade of restaurants and packaged food, plate and pantry. And to set the stage, I want to just spend a few moments to share points of provocation that can spark ideas to inform action from every single one of you in this room. So this is Salinas, California. It's known as the salad bowl of America. The chances are about 90% that the salad you had today for lunch came from this place. Over the last 50 or so years, food technology has gotten very, very good at feeding a growing population at a reasonable price. But like anything else, there are costs associated with this scale. And just like a lightning cable is designed to fit the latest and greatest iPhones, this is a tractor that's exclusively designed to harvest a very specific variety of butterhead lettuce. And today, 4 chemical companies are responsible for 70% of the world's seeds, ultimately dictating the future of the world's food. If we continue down this path, the Rodale Institute predicts that we have about 60 years of remaining topsoil left. You don't need me to tell you that Americans consume too much meat, but here it is in a lovely little chart. Over the last 40 or so years, per capita meat consumption has doubled in countries like this one. And over the next 30 years, that same doubling principle will apply to the global meat production as developing countries mimic our Western diets. Technology, in this case, industrial farming, is the driving force behind this. So, I almost fell over. This is a flyover shot, drone shot of a factory pig farm in good old North Carolina. with an oceanfront view of a man-made reservoir of pig fecal matter. They are never emptied, but rather sprayed into the neighboring area, ultimately inhaled by nearby residents. We kill 75 billion animals per year to provide every single one of us in this room, every American, with an individual supply of 222.4 pounds of meat annually. Food is technology. My background is rooted in software, not food. But the more I've studied our food system, the more that I've realized just how much technology shapes it. Everything we consume is created and made available to us through this technology, regardless of how old that given practice is. This is a vertical farm. Shout out to Bowery and Arrow Farms. They use no soil, no pesticides, and they consume about 95% less water than a normal farm. They operate in urban warehouses in cities like Newark, close to the end consumer. A recent analysis found that vertical farming has the potential to yield about 10% of global produce if we implement them in the world's most populated cities. And as a result, there's a whole new crop of cherry tomatoes that are specifically bred to grow in this new environment. A team of researchers have used CRISPR technology to edit the genes of tomatoes to grow in grape-like bunches that you see in this photo. Okay, show of hands, who's tried Impossible Burger? Pretty much everybody, and not shocking. It's trying to mimic the texture, flavor, and juiciness of meat, but how do we do it? This is done through the fermentation of a soy-based protein called heme, the iron-containing molecule found in the blood of humans and animals that's responsible for giving meat its taste. It makes up about 2% of that end product. And as evidenced by last year's Summer of White Claw, consumers are shifting towards healthier, lower ABV beverages. Alcohol volumes have been in steady decline over the last 3 years, down nearly 1% last year, which is a huge deal for a $254 billion industry. Enter cannabis. Bear with me. Unlike a traditional edible, nano-emulsified THC is... What? Huh? Turn the mirroring off. Unlike a traditional edible, nano-emulsified THC is able to mimic a similar peak duration of alcohol with a more rapid onset.
By the time you're finished with the first bottle, you should know whether or not your individual tolerance is going to let you have a second bottle or not. So our onset time is about 15 to 30 minutes. Really sensitive people are feeling it in 15 minutes. Some people have told me they're feeling the twinges of it in about 10 minutes. They've actually sat and timed it. And so it's very similar to the alcohol time.
Slideshow jujitsu. Okay. Yes, that was in reference to THC-infused alcohol-free beer, and let me tell you, it works. This is not meat. It has the same amino acids and minerals as meat. It's high in natural fiber and vitamins, but don't call it meat. It's made from fermented mycelium. And mycelium are the vegetative fungus roots of mushrooms and other wild fungi. And the way it works is you culture mycelium from a strain of wild fungi, feed it water, sugar, and some nutrients, and let it grow in a biofermenter to look like this in a matter of days. And then from here, you can shape it into a chicken breast, a steak, or even seafood. This is Perfect Day. It's a direct-to-consumer startup that uses identical proteins found in milk to make ice cream, but without the cow. So similar to the last meat startup I showed, Perfect Day inoculates yeast with genes found in whey and casein. It's the two proteins found in milk. Add sugar to ferment them into an ingredient that's ultimately used in the ice cream. Show of hands. Who's ordered food delivery in the last week? Okay, shout out to Uber Eats in the building. Online food delivery is a $27 billion market here in the US, I believe. Most recently, delivery and takeout sales have eclipsed dine-in for specifically fast casual and quick service brands. That means that there's more people ordering via apps than talking to a server and enjoying their meal inside of a restaurant for those kinds of restaurants. As a result, tech companies are trying to figure out how to make it profitable one day. DoorDash and Postmates only have about a year to a year and a half to figure this out. And so one of these solutions is to replace good old delivery drivers with robots, autonomous robots like you see in this photo. I believe that is Postmates being supervised by a chaperone, passing a homeless person on the streets of Los Angeles. But the most ironic thing is that an Uber driver is actually shooting this whole thing from his passenger window. Another quick survey, who's ordered online groceries in the past month? Okay. Only 3% of grocery sales occur online today, but that is projected to grow to about 13% in just 2 years. So how do we handle having 4 times the amount of Instacart pickers congesting grocery aisles for shoppers? Anybody have any ideas? Robots. Yes, robots. We create dark micro-fulfillment centers in underutilized spaces like the one you see above. You're looking at one of 3 temperature-controlled zones of an 18,000 square foot underground space located in the garage of a skyscraper in the heart of downtown Tel Aviv, Israel. Here, robots pick groceries, and just 4 employees handle everything else. It's the first of 12 exclusive sites operated by a startup called Fabric in partnership with the largest grocer in Israel, Rami Levy. And they're also in New York, and they're planning to get it to a point where you could get your groceries delivered in just 15 minutes. So hold that thought. We're going to get into micro-fulfillment in just a few. I'm very excited to kick the evening off with our first panel about digital native food and beverage brands. So I'd like to call these panelists up to the stage right now, and let's get started. Thank you guys for being here. I'm very excited. Can we just do little quick Twitter bios, 140 characters or less? Just kidding, just quick bio.
Okay, so I'll kick that off. I'm Alex Malamatinas. I manage Nebari Ventures, which is a New York-based VC fund, and we invest in primarily early-stage food and beverage products. Better for you and innovative branding being a key focus.
Kaitlin. I run the e-commerce team at Sigmatic. Sigmatic is a wellness brand that uses the world's most nutrient-dense foods like functional mushrooms and adaptogens and pairs them with everyday staples like coffee, protein, skincare, hot cacao, and we try to make it easy.
Hey guys, Harrison. I'm head of operations for Bond. We're a new startup in the micro-fulfillment space focused on last mile delivery here in New York.
Love micro-fulfillment. Okay,
And
cool.
And fungi.
And I love fungi. And I love better for you.
And VCs, right?
And VCs, yes. Okay. So, Alex, I'm going to kick it off with you. Tell us, why has direct-to-consumer become such a prevalent model? And how do you think new brands should evaluate which sales channel to go through when they're getting started?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. I think a couple important factors. One is consumer, one is technology. I think first on the consumer, everyone's busier. Everybody wants everything yesterday. And so typically, the stereotype is sort of a New Yorker who's very busy, stuck in the office or wherever it might be. He or she just doesn't have time, as crazy as it sounds, to go to a restaurant. So the consumer wants to be able to order the food directly to wherever he or she is. So I think that's one element that's important. Another one is technology. I mean, the fact that consumers are interacting with brands directly over social media, but also with the likes of Uber Eats and Seamless, they now have the option through technology to get these products, meals, whatever it might be, directly to their doorsteps. So those are there was a second part of the question as well.
If I'm a new brand, how do I decide that I want to sell direct to consumer versus retail? What are the compelling pieces of direct to consumer as a business?
Yeah, so that's a question that we think about very often, and the founders of our portfolio companies are constantly assessing. I think one of the big buzzwords of the day is omni-channel. So I think if you're a successful brand at a certain stage, you, in theory, should be present both in retail as well as online. The question is often, how do you start? You're a founder, you've got a great product, you've got some authentic branding. Do you start direct to consumer or do you start in retail? And I think a lot of that depends on the price point of the product. Typically, not to generalize, but if it's, call it a $3 beverage, it's extremely difficult to justify direct to consumer because the costs of delivering are still so high. If it's, a more premium product, we're investors in a direct to consumer brand called Dirty Lemon. Dirty Lemon manages to sell its bottles for $10. And so it can justify that delivery cost. Obviously, there's other elements. If you're ordering the products with a high enough frequency, you can also justify the cost. But I think, those are sort of elements that people think about as they're starting off.
Awesome. Kaitlin, can you talk about with Four Sigmatic in your experience, what about Four Sigmatic lends itself well to this channel? And what are the costs or drawbacks associated with going direct?
Yeah, and I would also just add to your answer, really owning the relationship with your customer is something that appeals to so many founders with D2C. Like when someone comes into a store, you don't necessarily know who they are, you can't collect information on them, and you can't, gather feedback from them. So it was important to us, especially our founders were Finnish. We came over to the US. There is a bit of a cultural difference. So getting to know who our US customer was, gathering feedback from them and letting that inform our product strategy, our, even our branding, and making it a collaborative growth together is something that we experienced. D2C, yeah, some of the drawbacks, our product is very well suited to D2C. So light, it is inexpensive, but you can kind of package it together at a serving size. It's replenishable, so it's, with our coffee, it's something that you consume every day, so you're gonna want to kind of come back for more. I think if you're like RTD, ready to drink, many people can't make that work on D2C. If it's, shipping and logistics issues, we offer 100% money back guarantee, but if you're doing something like a mattress, it's harder to have that relationship and really give the customer the benefit of the doubt. But Casper did it, so it's possible. So yeah, that's kind of the Four Sigmatic way of thinking about it.
Okay, great. Last but not least, Harrison, can you talk about, for entrepreneurs getting started, what are the fundamental technologies that have lowered the playing field, and maybe talk a little bit about the hardest parts of selling direct?
Yeah, I think obvious stuff is going to be kind of on the front end of the experience. So ordering platforms, something like Shopify Plus has definitely changed the game for a lot of people, and the wider ecosystem around that. So all the apps that were built on top of that, servicing different use cases for e-commerce companies, pretty turnkey today. I don't think that was the case maybe 10 years ago. What people often forget is these are ops-intensive businesses. You need logistics expertise, you need supply chain expertise. And I think that's the shift we've seen in the past few years that's unlocked a lot of opportunity for people. So companies like Flex, ShipBob, maybe even Anvil in the supply chain software space, allowing someone who maybe doesn't have that expertise to enter a market where you're shipping physical product to end consumers. So that's definitely changed the game. Last part of the question.
And some of the hardest challenges that come with that.
Yeah. So I think in general, we're going to see a bit of the tightening of the belt, VC capital. So you're going to kind of have direct-to-consumer companies shift from maybe once was a marketing machine to now how do you operate profitably? So the question there becomes, can you increase your customer acquisition costs? So I think that's going to be the biggest question of the next few years. And there's limited options to do that. So I think getting creative with physical distribution, so opening up brick and mortar stores, omni-channel, and then you're probably going to see a lot of companies try to go wide and extend their LTVs, and then maybe even do something like a subscription to productize their brand, which is the only asset they have.
We have one company in the building doing that.
What? I would also say that consumer expectations are so much higher. And so when your consumer base is expecting everything on Amazon Prime, schedules, 1 to 2 day shipping, that's a challenge.
For sure.
Dope. So I want to get into that in a second, but first I want Alex to respond to, this kind of talking about the different acquisition channels. Talk to us about, your portfolio companies from your perspective. How should brands be looking at, customer acquisition channels, and then also where does retail fall into play as far as, is that a marketing expense or is that something that is an actual viable channel?
Yeah, so I think the emergence of social media, Facebook, Instagram being a couple of examples, really gave the opportunity for many of these early stage brands to gain awareness. I mean, before that just really wasn't possible. It was the large food and beverage companies that spent millions or multi-millions of dollars on TV ads. So again, companies like Sigmatic, Dirty Lemon, Matcha Bar, gained sort of the awareness of consumers very quickly. With all that said, I think it's still, a channel that most brands need to be on. The issue is that because everyone's there, everyone's spending, the customer acquisition costs have been rising at a rapid rate. So the question is, you're sort of an emerging brand, where do you spend? And the question is, how much do you spend? What is the return on that spend? So there's no sort of easy answer, but I think ultimately it's a combination of spending on social media, having some presence in retail, and increasingly actually there's a move back. We're starting to see brands that are now getting sort of presence in traditional billboards because, that's probably not as expensive and, a lot of consumers are seeing the brands.
Interesting. Kaitlin, can you talk about the offline experience today for Sigmatic? The Shroom Room is very curious for you to explain that to everybody. How do you classify that? Is it marketing or is it an actual sales channel?
Yeah, for sure. In the face of a competitive landscape on paid media, I think it challenges brands to think differently and try different things. CPG brand, we've gone the traditional route of partnering with distributors and going into, brick and mortar stores. So we're in like 5,000 doors across the U.S., Whole Foods, Sprouts, Wegmans, all of the natural channels and co-ops, and now we're kind of moving into conventional. So that's actually one of the biggest opportunities for our business is bringing shrooms to the masses, as you might say. And since the beginning, we have also had we had our original shroom room in Venice Beach on Abbot Kinney, and this is really a great opportunity for us to kind of make our brand physical. So it's an experience. All of our staff are so well trained, and they'll talk to you about all the different functional mushrooms. We use it as also a sampling opportunity, especially with a product like ours. Like the question inevitably is, what does it taste like? Does it taste like mushrooms? Will I like it? So we want that sampling opportunity. Whether or not a customer purchases at our store, that impression, that experience will kind of warm the customer, and inevitably they're going to either be an evangelist or at least be aware, and they can kind of share their experience. So we hope to break even on our spaces, but we really think about it like brand marketing. So we can also utilize it for content. So filming videos, doing interviews, and keeping our wider customer base kind of involved in our little shop. And we did open our second location at the Market Line in Lower East Side here in New York. So very happy about that. So plug for the Shroom Room New York.
Cool. And then how do you go about tracking the online, offline Shroom Room experiences, or the online, offline channels?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's, and I'm sure you're hearing this from your brands, like that's one of the biggest challenges is how do you calculate LTV when your customer could be purchasing you in many different places? Ultimately, our North Star is we want to be where the customer is. So if you prefer to buy on Amazon, we want to be there for you. If you prefer to buy everywhere, great. Find the best deal, go for it. So ultimately, that is why we are as many places as we are. And then secondary to that, how can we track? It's a big, it is a challenge. And, one of the things we've done is with our D2C, we've surveyed. So we've just asked our customers, like, do you purchase us? Have you purchased us in the past on Amazon, at Whole Foods, et cetera? And we found that around a third of our customers online have purchased us elsewhere. So we can use that as an estimation, but ultimately we're going to use the rich information we have online to inform offline marketing initiatives or experiences.
Very cool. Harrison, can you talk about how you've seen brands that you've worked with, kind of adjust their Amazon strategies over the years, and maybe talk a little bit about how you're helping them with Bond on more of that?
Yeah, so I think it's always tricky with Amazon. I think there was probably more of a willingness to experiment maybe a few years ago. I think people are smartening up to the fact that it's a dangerous place to be if you're a commodity product. I think Sigmatic is a fantastic example of something that is not. They have a great relationship with their customers. You have brand integrity. So if you're going on Amazon and you're nothing but a nice, fresh brand on top of a commodity product, you're likely to get ripped off in under 12 months. So I think for brands that are focused on who they are as a brand, mission, customer experience, going offline, starting there, collecting data on your customers and having that one-to-one relationship is very crucial. But it's not easy, right? Amazon has a pretty awesome customer experience. You get things really quick. It's predictable. So from Bond's perspective, we think that we can kind of offer a tool set for brands to use to combat a little bit of that, and then just have more leverage when you're going up against Amazon and trying to get brands to come through your own channel. So something like fast shipping, scheduled delivery, those are things that kind of give you somewhat of a chance to fight against the big guys.
Cool. I want to bounce right back to Kaitlin to talk a little bit more about the subscription business. So can you talk about how you build value around your community with your subscription? What else am I getting when I join this community? How are you building that?
Yeah, for sure. And I think this is actually one of our kind of responses to Amazon. I mean, as any online brand, you're going to have to think about how can you compete with Amazon, whether it's your own product on Amazon, again, purchase us wherever you want, or it's a competitor's product on Amazon. How can you add that value? And it's not just about like a beautiful brand, a beautiful photography anymore. So we kind of have a couple pillars. You have to offer the discount. You have to offer the free shipping for your subscribers. Have to is a strong word, but we offer a discount and a free shipping. That's kind of the basics. That's what consumers expect these days. So what else can you add? And we have our community. So we obviously have our public community on Instagram and Facebook. We have a Facebook group of over 20,000 people that's dedicated to mushrooms as kind of a topic, not even to do with our brand. And then we have a private community of our members, and that's where they can kind of, meet like-minded people and compare notes and get excited about products. So that's the community aspect. We also do a lot in the educational portion. So we try to be a center for kind of wellness knowledge, and we build trust with our customers that way. So we're not just talking about our products all day long. We're talking about the lifestyle, the routines, the adjacent products, things that our customers are interested in that are complementary to our products. So we do that through email, and disseminate it through our private communities. We also try, surprise and delight. That's kind of the phrase that everyone uses, but it's so true. Surprise, can you send your customers gifts? What are the gifts that they would appreciate? These are our best customers, so they're not necessarily going to want an additional discount. That's not what they're after. They're paying for it. They love it. They use it every day. What can make them really feel special? And that one of the things that we do is offer new products. We launch it to our members exclusively before we launch it to the greater community. And this is just something really easy and free that we can offer to our members that makes them feel really special and involved. So whatever your brand is, just put yourself in the customer's head and what would they really appreciate and make them feel special.
Awesome. I really want to get into the private shroom room or community. Okay, just wrapping up here. Alex, what are your predictions around M&A in the CPG space? And maybe you could talk a little about what are the key metrics you're looking to see when you're evaluating startups today.
Yeah, so just take a brief step back. I think what's very exciting for the space and entrepreneurs in the space is that the large food and beverage companies have effectively outsourced their R&D to early stage. And what I mean by that is that the large companies are looking to the early stage founders for innovation. And so they're actively acquiring companies that fill gaps in their portfolios, whether it's products, whether it's technology, whether it's engagement with a certain demographic or customer. And the multiples have been very high. I mean, sort of range typically tends to be for food and beverage products anywhere from sort of 2 times to 6 times sales. If it's alcoholic, perhaps even higher than that. In terms of what we look for as an early stage investor, I mean, there's a whole host of criteria, but just to simplify it, the founder and the team, I mean, that's essential. We look at the product, we looked at the branding, we look at the messaging, and then from the financial side, it just has to make sense. So we look at the unit economics, we look at the margins, we look at the rate of growth, and quite frankly, we're already thinking about what's the exit potential. So, whether that's potential exit to a strategic, so large food and beverage company, or even an IPO, but we like to understand sort of what's the founders thinking on how they want to scale the company.
Awesome. We have a few seconds left, but I just want to bounce right back to Harrison real quick. Talk about predictions for micro-fulfillment in 2020.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a lot more movement in the space, primarily around grocery, CPG, kind of your fast-moving consumer goods. Those are the things that are, more likely to move within an hour, 2 hours, or same day. In general, we're going to see more warehouses move towards the city, but I think micro-fulfillment is going to stick to those categories for today. 15
minutes?
Sure, why not?
Anything?
Outside of food, unlikely that it's coming from a bodega, but I think you'll see hour delivery for most commodity products inside like a Amazon Prime Now experience.
Okay, awesome. Really quick, Kaitlin, predictions for the future of CPG in 2020.
I mean, I think cannabis is part of it. I think I would defer to your video.
Yes, it works. I still want to see the next gen fungi product though.
Please.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you guys. We're going to do a little quick round of Q&A. So Kit is running around here, so raise your hand and Kit will call upon you.
I got one right here.
Whiz.
Thank you. My question is for Kaitlin. Psychedelics are very nascent right now. We were talking about them earlier. Have you guys talked at all about psychedelic mushrooms and how Four Sigmatic could be in an interesting position to play in that market in the future?
We talk about it, but that's definitely not a focus for the company. I think if you talk to our founder, he would have a lot to say. But it's incredibly interesting. I think really stepping back, fungi has so much potential, whether it's protein, whether it's psychedelics in the form of just an amazing meditative experience, or helping with some mental illness therapy experiences. I'm a fan of fungi.
Nice.
Yes. Hi. This is a question for Alex. I'm very happy to see Kaitlin on the panel. And I'm wondering, how many women-owned startups or companies have you invested in? What's the ratio versus men-owned businesses?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm actually proud to say that I don't know the exact percentage, but it's at least a third, somewhere probably about 40% that are female-led companies, and we've got some very impressive founders. Jen Batchelor, who's the founder of Kin Euphorics, Sarah, who's the founder of Gem, which is ingestible bites, Carly Stein, who's the founder of Beekeepers Naturals, Jennifer Chow, the founder of Nurture Life. So there's actually, there's some incredible women in the industry they're building some exciting companies. We're not there yet, but we're getting there. Yeah.
I've got a question for Kaitlin. Here, sorry. How do you view the e-commerce or D2C sector for CBD products? Because I know they can't use digital ads, so how do you believe that they can get their product out there, without using digital ads as a Kickstarter?
Yeah, I think there are other, digital spaces and communities that you can foster. I think offline experiences could be great. I also think that regulatory and progress will be made, and there's a lot of people in the wings waiting to kind of take advantage of traditional D2C ad platforms. So do what you can now and fight the good fight.
Got a question in the front?
This could maybe be for anyone, but how are evolving sustainability standards going to affect packaging and shipping, maybe from your perspective, Kaitlin, or from your perspective when investing, when it comes to the cost of a product?
Yeah, so I think it's a huge focus for everyone. It's a big focus for consumers. I think it has already become a big focus for the large food and beverage companies that have already self-imposed targets. So what we're seeing increasingly is a move away from plastic. There's already scientists and founders that are working on alternatives. But then even something as simple as water. We see it if you go to any sort of gym studio or Barry's Boot Camp in New York, there's boxed water. So I think it's definitely a big focus, and it will continue to be.
Yeah, it's definitely something on our radar and on our mind. It's important to our customers and us personally as the team. I think there's packaging improvements that can happen. And so I think there is a responsibility of the brands to continue to push that envelope. And I also would say there's a responsibility of the consumer. Unfortunately, a lot of brands, can't make certain decisions because people won't pay more, and it kind of sucks. But if we continue to spend, vote with our dollars, and then brands continue to have an awareness around sustainability, I think we can kind of get there. But it's yesterday was the day to start. So
I'll add to that really quickly. Big focus for us at Bond. We have an all-electric fleet. Main goal, obviously, to eliminate the number of trucks entering Manhattan, which I'm sure you guys all deal with on a daily basis. So we store products in the city, which allow us to use things like electric bikes, kind of eliminate some of the heavy freight that's responsible for most parcel today. And then we also eliminate a lot of the packaging. So we store products in small warehouses, so it's not going very far. We don't need traditional boxes. You can kind of deliver something in a bag, which we think is a massive, is going to have a massive impact for most brands selling online today.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question.
I'd love both Alex and Kaitlin's perspective on this, but My perception was that maybe 5 years ago in DTC, it was a lot easier to just come up with a great product and put it out there by buying Google ads and Facebook ads. And I'm wondering how you've seen portfolio companies or peer companies evolve their early customer acquisition to deal with the reality of much higher prices, much lower ROAS.
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I think that's one of the topics that almost all of the companies in the space are thinking about this day. So it's trying to be creative, and I don't think there's one right answer. I think it's sort of ultimately with the goal of being omni-channel. Again, the buzzword, the consumer wants to interact with the brand with their phone, through apps, text messaging. They want to experience the brand in the showroom room. They want to be able to buy it, in the grocery store. So I think it's really a question of being creative. I think what we're seeing as well is the use of PR. So PR is sort of an effective way to really, get a wide audience. And again, sort of like old school traditional marketing is making a comeback, and billboards, even, sort of short TV ads, YouTube, etc. But brands definitely need to be creative, I think, to be successful.
Yeah, I think to echo Alex's point, it's about not putting, all your eggs in the Facebook, Instagram, and Google basket. I think there are still, you can find efficiencies there. So, find a great partner who are focused on creativity and audiences instead of trying to beat the algorithm. In the golden age of paid media, I feel like everyone was trying to get that arbitrage against the algorithm. It's just too good now. So focus on those elements and get creative. So we leverage podcasts, affiliates, influencers a lot, and we're you in any e-commerce, online, digital media, talk, you will always come across, influencers, but it really is a great way to access other people's communities. So these are people who have created their own community. They speak authentically about your brand, and that helps. And I would also say connected TV is kind of that newer TV version where you don't have to say and spray, and there's a little more performance behind it. But yeah, getting offline is something that brands are doing these days, and it's a good option.
Okay, thank you guys. Can we get a round of applause for this really awesome panel, please?